So here we are, yet another video talking again about Nintendo. Um, why? Why? Okay, so Nintendo, and I didn't even realize this was their projection. They want the Nintendo Switch to last. They want it to be an 11-year cycle. I shit you not. I couldn't make this stuff up. They want the Nintendo Switch to be a console cycle that lasts 11 total years. 11 freaking years. They don't have that kind of luxury. And here, I think I've discussed this before, but I'm going to tell you why. They don't have the luxury because their console and their devices are always behind the competition. It's always weaker than the competition. They're always like a generation or two behind as far as capabilities go. They're always kind of behind. So there was a recent Bloomberg article, basically. And so in this article, they said the Nintendo Switch. I'm just going to read this. So the Nintendo Switch will be turning 6 years old this year. I'm reading this off of mynintendonews.com, which I'm at a point where I feel like they should change their name to My Video Game News and just talk about whatever. It doesn't have to be Nintendo focused, because sometimes they'll bring up very non-Nintendo stuff. So yeah, that's neither here nor there. I'm sorry. So speculation on the next video game console from Nintendo has only been increasing from fans. However, a report from Bloomberg may suggest that Nintendo isn't quite ready to move on from the Switch just yet. According to Bloomberg, via people familiar with the matter, quote unquote, Nintendo is planning to increase production of the Switch beginning in the coming fiscal year that starts in spring. In fact, Nintendo has apparently already told this to suppliers and assembly partners. As for why, there's a couple of reasons. Nintendo is convinced that this is possible to do now that the supply issues and shortages are starting to ease. They also feel that demand for the console is still strong. I would disagree. I think a lot of people that are buying Switches are buying replacements. I think we're at that point to where we're seeing the final people buy a Switch that have been on the fence. There are a lot of people that I've talked to have already stopped playing their Switches because they want better visual fidelity. They want. I can give you an example. Uh, I think GameSack, Joe on GameSack. I think that's his name. So I think he mentioned how there's a few games he's gotten for both Switch and for like the PS, I guess 4, 5, whatever, because they released on both, and he just preferred it on the PlayStation for the simple fact that the visual fidelity and the refresh rate and everything was just French kiss. It was much better than the Switch. The Switch is getting long in the tooth. It's becoming a bit anemic. Now I'll be the first one to say that the Switch, I mean, that when it comes to video games, I mean, you know me. I'm a retro gamer mostly. I think you guys have figured this out. I don't play a lot of new games. I think you guys have noticed this. I'm not big on modern gaming. Not too much anyways. A lot of my modern gaming is done on my PC right now. Uh and then we have the and people have made this stupid argument over and over again, and I completely disagree. I feel that these new handheld gaming PCs, basically, I think they are competition for the Switch. I believe that they are, or they're going to become it when other people start getting wind of what these devices are able to do. I think you're going to see more people move over to them. Um, they are going to become competition for the Switch. Here's what I have to say about all this. Nintendo has another year. They don't have the luxury of 11 years. That was like apparently their initial thoughts was an 11-year cycle. It's not happening. It's not feasible. They're going to be lucky to get another year, year and a half out of the Switch. I am telling you, I am pulling a Michael Pachter. I'm pulling a Michael Pachter here, and I'm telling you that in the next year, year and a half, That's it. You're going to start seeing sales kind of drop off. You're going to see software sales kind of go, You're going to see software development from third parties just kind of go, You're going to slowly see all that take a nosedive in the next year or so. They don't have the luxury of an 11-year cycle. Hell, they don't even have the luxury of a 9-year cycle. They are lucky to be getting what, like 7, maybe 8 years out of this. They are lucky to be getting that. And here and again, it's because they just don't have that luxury because they never make a capable device. Their devices, their consoles are always, well, they haven't always been like this. Let's be fair. Arguably, the Nintendo 64 was a much more capable piece of hardware than the original PlayStation. And this is a pretty big but, they went with cartridges. At the time, it was a bad move. They should have went to optical media. They should have went to discs. They did not do it. And then by the time that they did go to discs on the GameCube, they half-assed it. They had these small little 1.5 gigabyte discs. We had developers having to squeeze stuff either into one disc or they were having to have two of the small discs. I have the original Resident Evil 1 remake on GameCube. It is two discs. Two freaking discs. Two discs. Okay, for a total, let's see, 1.5, 1.5, so it's for a total of 3 gigs. I do believe, yeah. 1 and 1 is 2, 5.5 is like 5 is okay. Yeah, so about 3 gigs, give or take. Nintendo, again, they half-assed it, and then the Wii was nothing more than gimmicks attached to the GameCube. At its core, it was just a slightly souped-up GameCube. That's all the Wii was. That's why the Dolphin emulator runs GameCube and Wii games, because really they just took hardware they already had that had gone down in price, and they said, let's refashion it, rework it, and we'll keep using that for a new console. It was a way to cut corners and come up with something and come up with the whole gimmick and get a hook and get people interested. Didn't really work out. Most people were elderly people would buy a Wii, but then they would take that Wii and put it in a closet or something. A lot of people were doing that. It was like, why do I have this thing? The gimmick wore off fast. Most people weren't buying the software. A lot of shovelware was coming out for the Wii U. I mean, not the Wii U, but the Wii. And then let's not get started on the Wii U. The Wii U was again another device that was a bit behind the competition and upcoming competition. Nintendo always does this. So when it came to the Wii U, people I don't think were quite gravitating towards it, and then towards the end of the Wii U, supply or the needed necessary whatever to create the Switch, the hardware, the chips, everything were going. I think were going up. The cost to make them was going up. They were losing money. Nintendo has this thing where they like to make money off their consoles. They like making money off of the hardware. Okay, and I don't think a lot of other companies do that. PlayStation, Microsoft, or should I say Sony and Microsoft, they don't do that with their consoles. They take a loss because they make up for it in software. Nintendo doesn't. Nintendo tries to sell something to where they can make some kind of a profit from their hardware, and I think that's part of their downfall, really. And part of the problem is that they spend money on R&D for gimmicks, and they're not practical gimmicks. So let's jump from the Wii U to the Nintendo Switch. Okay, so there are a few gimmicks that the Switch has, but the practical gimmick of it is what got people hooked. There's a practicality to it. Okay, and if Nintendo can harness a practical gimmick moving forward, hold on a second. If Nintendo can come up with a practical gimmick again moving forward with their next device, I'm going to say device from now on because they're not quite consoles anymore. They're a hybrid of consoles and handhelds. And no, I do not call handhelds consoles. Handhelds are not consoles. Handhelds are handhelds. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. A handheld is a handheld, not a handheld console, just a handheld. You could say mobile device. Mobile device is fine. The Game Boy was a mobile device, a handheld. The Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Advance, the DS, the 3DS, all of those, in my opinion, were just handhelds, while the NES, the Super NES, the Nintendo 64, the GameCube, the Wii, and the Wii U were all home actual consoles. They were consoles. The Switch is a hybrid. All right. So I just keep calling it a device. So whatever Nintendo's next device is, they need to keep it practical. Like your hook has to not be an expensive hook, really, or it has to be a practical hook that people like. The practical hook for the Switch was being able to just play it on your TV, plop it into the dock, watch it on TV, or play your game on TV, or pull it out and continue playing on the go with your Switch. And part of that, and I hate to quote another YouTuber here, but Richard Masucci said it himself, you could take a AAA experience. It was a bit gimped, but you could take a AAA experience on the go, which to me, does anybody not remember how the Vita didn't really work out? And they were putting AAA experiences on the go, right? It didn't. It's funny how it didn't work for Sony, but it worked for Nintendo. That's strange to me. That's always kind of got me. But that AAA experience that you could play at home or on the go was part of it. And even though the games that were coming, like Doom 2016 and the other Doom, I can't remember the subtitle for it, but that Doom, and Wolfenstein, the New Order and whatnot, that managed to come to the Switch, albeit gimped a bit, but they were there. It was a serviceable AAA experience that was on the go. They are not going to keep getting those ports to the Switch moving forward because of the new hardware that is out. Going back to what I was saying before, Nintendo does not have the luxury because they do not make hardware with graphical and processing capabilities that are up to par with their competition. And like it or not, Nintendo or Sony and Microsoft are Nintendo's competition, regardless of what Nintendo does. Like they used to have with the Wii, it was like a blue ocean strategy. You're still making a video game console, dude. Just stop, just stop. It was a video game console. You were in competition, like it or not. All right, as long as you're making something to play video games on, and I know this is going to sound weird, but I kind of look forward to the day where Nintendo stops worrying about the hardware side of things and just makes games. Put their games officially on PC, put their games officially on other devices and whatnot. Just put them on other things. They're already doing it with iOS. I don't think they need to keep making hardware. Like, if all they're worried about is the gimmick, why not just make a gimmick that works with existing hardware? I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like Nintendo should maybe partner with one of its competition and stop worrying about hardware, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's a stupid idea. That might be a stupid idea. I don't know. But again, Nintendo, if they made something capable, whatever their next device is, needs to be capable. All right. It needs to be up to par with whatever Sony and Microsoft have out at the time. Nintendo needs to make something with that visual fidelity that the other competition has. It has to be up there on par functionally and graphically. It has to be. Then they have the luxury to have a device that can last up to 11 years. They're never going to have a device that can last 11 in an 11-year cycle as long as they always make gimped hardware. Like it or not, the Switch is nowhere near. Hell, the Switch isn't even as capable as the PS4. It's just not. It's not as capable as any of the Xboxes that we have now, or even the last generation. It's just not. I would argue that the Switch is on par or maybe slightly above what the PS3 and the Xbox 360 were capable of. It's just a bit higher than that, but not by much. Nintendo, stop making anemic devices. Stop. Just don't overthink your next device. Don't overthink it. It doesn't need to be it doesn't need to have some crazy gimmicks. It just doesn't. Those crazy expensive gimmicks, I feel, are kind of why consoles are getting so expensive. Part of the cost that's being passed on to us. I miss basic controllers. I miss when the controllers we got were basically give me a moment here. I'm gonna right over here somewhere. You know what? No, right over here. I miss when game console controllers were basically this. Very simple tech. It's not too over the top. It's just a regular controller in your hand. Doesn't have a whole lot of gimmicks or anything. I miss when this was our controller. I miss when we had like the Sega controllers and whatnot. We don't need fancy controls. We don't need to evolve the controller. In fact, I would argue that this is a good evolution of the controller. I don't like the grips. I don't like them against my palms. It makes my hands hurt with the nerve damage and whatnot. Nintendo, I would like to see companies stop making expensive controllers. And the expensive gimmick, when a Nintendo makes a gimmick, it adds to the cost of the device. So then they dial back on the capabilities of the hardware to keep it at a price that's competitive, but it's not always going to work. What they need to do is stop worrying about gimmicks, okay? If they want to, here's a gimmick that I would like to see, and I think I mentioned this before. I want to see them come up with a VR mode. The next Switch needs to just have more things it can switch to, okay? And that right there that I just said, switch to, it needs to have a simple name. Whatever they come up with next just needs a simple numerical name. Do not overthink your names. You don't want another confusion like you had with the Wii U. You overthink things. This is why you struggle so much. This is why Nintendo's nervous, because they'll have a big successful device and then when they move on to the next one, it's not successful. But that's because of the blunders you make. I'm telling you right now to learn from your lessons. Don't be nervous. Just stop doing silly shit. Stop doing silly things. Stop trying to worry about gimmicks too much, okay? Stop trying to worry about weird names. Don't name it anything weird. Give it a if it's a much more powerful take on the Switch, either call it the Switch 2 or something that just kind of works better, like the Switch Advance. Let's go back to the Advance moniker, or call it the Nintendo Super Switch or the Super Nintendo Switch or something like that. Keep the labeling, keep that labeling simple, all right? Keep the labeling simple. Don't come up with don't call it a Switch U. Don't call it a Switch WD-40, whatever, 95A. Don't come up with weird names. Just give it something simple. People understand this. Sony has proven time and time again that you don't have to do anything but come up with a flagship name and give it a number. That's it, because that's all they've been doing. A lot of people might call that lazy. I call it consistency. All right. People don't get confused. PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then maybe 6. This is something Xbox needs to learn. They keep naming their, and I'm pretty sure part of why Microsoft keeps naming the Xbox these weird names is because they don't want people to realize that their systems, their consoles are always behind because they came in late. I think the original Xbox came out around the time of the PlayStation or sometime after the PlayStation. Yeah, they were playing catch up quite a bit. You have to realize that Microsoft's first console was an Xbox, was the first Xbox. You have if you don't count the reiterations of each one, there was the Xbox 360, Xbox One, and now the Xbox Series. So they have four under their belt. That's it. That's the only amount of consoles that Microsoft has under its belts, not counting the slightly tweaked or slightly upgraded versions. We're not counting those. We're not counting revisions. We're counting the mains. So Xbox 360, Xbox One, which was stupid. That's when it gets really stupid. 361 series. The names are stupid. All right, just move away from that. Start numerically calling your Xboxes. It's getting out of hand. Sony's the only one I feel like does it right. And I don't even like Sony consoles anymore. I love the original PlayStation. PlayStation 2 was okay. Then I had a PlayStation 3 and it became harder to find the kind of games I wanted to play. And then when the PS4 came out, I was like, there's nothing I want to play. PS4 comes out, PS5 comes out, there's nothing I want to play. There's nothing. So Microsoft, Nintendo needs to stop that with the naming conventions. I'm going on a tangent here. I'm going on a bit of a rant here, and I did not mean to do that. But the point stands. Nintendo, you don't have the luxury. You need to be careful with your naming, and Don't try to overthink it. Give us something more capable next time. All right. Keep things up to date. And yeah, if you're going to add a gimmick, I still think VR is the way to go. I do. Could you imagine a just slightly wider version of a slightly wider, slightly more powerful version of the Switch with a specialty headset that you just slot the Switch into, the new Switch into, and you have a VR experience. I mean, the Joy Cons are already ripe for VR. Their simple design, holding them in your hands and doing things, it's already ripe for VR. Go in, grab. I'm pretty sure Nintendo could brainstorm something. I think VR is the way to go. The only thing that ever came out of Labo that I think was worth a damn was the VR stuff that they tried to do with the Labo. That was it. That was the only thing that I think really stuck with people. The VR stuff is cool. So if the next Switch has anything, I would like to see a VR option. Stop worrying about families in the living room. It's not really working. It doesn't really work. Most people that I see out and about with their Switch, they don't share their Switch. They don't pass a Joy-Con to somebody else. A lot of people just have it their own Switch to themselves. The center of the living room is no more, okay? It's not a thing anymore. When I've been to other people's homes, everybody in the household is sitting around with their own personal screen, watching or playing whatever the hell they want. There is no family gathering anymore. Nintendo, it's over. All right, Nintendo, it's over. Sony, it's over. Microsoft, it's over. It's all over. It's done. Dunsky. So stop trying to worry about the center of the living room. Stop trying to worry about all this crap. Just stop. All right, it doesn't work. It hasn't worked in a long time. Let it go. All right. So Nintendo, you need to also up your game when it comes to online gameplay. You need to up your game with that. I need to have voice chat built into the device. Quit worrying about protecting children. Quit trying to worry about protecting things and protect. And really, it's not so much about protecting children and whatnot. It's about protecting their own interests and covering their own asses. That's why Nintendo does this crap. Plus, they have this image that still uh, permeates, permeates, there's a word I'm looking for. I think it's permeates. That's still pervasive with a lot of people in that image is of a squeaky clean Disney-esque game company, and that's not necessarily true. We're talking about a company that used to have love hotels. Let me explain what a love hotel was. It's not what you think it was. It was actually places for parents because they have very small homes in Japan. It was a place to get away from their children and to have romantic times together. It was for adults who were married to go to, and that was originally. It might have changed, but we're talking about a company that came up with something like that early on, okay? They're not exactly squeaky clean, all right? And so this notion that everyone has needs to end. We need to stop this, all right? So I'm at the end of my video now. It's 20 something minutes. I didn't mean to go on that long, but Nintendo, you don't have this luxury. I know you don't watch my videos, but you don't have the luxury. You can't do this. You have to. You're going to be lucky to get another year and a half out of this. Let's move on. Let's get going on your next device. If it's a Switch 2 or a Super Switch or a Switch Pro, the momentum will still go. I mean, don't do like what you did with the 3DS, the new 3DS. Don't do that. That doesn't work in the West. It might work in the East. It doesn't, or in Japan, but it doesn't work in the West. Calling something new something doesn't work. It's cheesy. It's stupid. It's dumb. Don't call it the new anything. I don't know what you have planned. I'm not there. I don't see what's happening. I don't know what the inner workings are, but really, you don't have to overthink it. Just make a new, more capable Switch. Don't overthink it. Give it a name that makes people know that it is a new device, though. A new, more capable, powerful device. You don't have to have a gimmick or a hook constantly. But if you're going to, I still suggest VR. Just saying. This has been The Goof. Sorry for my long rant. Have a good one.